yeah, it's like working. It's a 100% full-time job.
So Kobby, then we start. First of all, I want to say thank you that you so easily, so smoothly and fast agreed to be my guest. For me, it's like a new dimension. Let's say Israel now is part of UEFA, but geographically, I think it's part of Asia, or can I say like
Middle East more, but yes, it's Israel always a center between Asia and Europe. So just like Russia in that sense. So it's a bridge between
Europe exactly.
And
but still,
Asia.
it's a new dimension for me. So that's why it's very welcome. I'm very welcome to you in my program. And maybe I start, let's say, from stupid questions for you, but interesting for me. And the first, my stupid question is about the holidays. You said, yeah, when we discussed our interview, you said that it's better to make on Thursday because Friday is holiday. But you know that in Russia and Europe, we have Saturday and Sunday as holidays. Could you tell some words about that? How it, like in perspective of football and your life personally?
Okay, so basically the holy day for the Jewish community is it's starting at Friday night, and the end of it is when you get to have 3 stars at Saturday night. So the enter of the Shabbat of Saturday is Friday afternoon, and when it's winter time, it's earlier. It starts at around 4:30 or 5. So most of the people doesn't work at all at Friday, but if they do, then usually it's only a half day. It ends at around 12:30 or 1. But most of the people in Israel doesn't even work at Friday. But Sunday is a regular day for us. So Sunday, we're just working.
So the week starts from Sunday.
Right, exactly.
And what about football? Is it possible that you have games, match days on Friday or Saturday?
The second division plays Friday and Monday. We in the IPFL, Israel Professional Football Leagues, we represent the professional leagues, which are 2. It's a second division called Liga Leumit, and first division is Liga Ta'al, the Premier League. And so I'm just closing the noise that won't interrupt us. So I'm sorry for that.
No problem.
And the games usually before COVID-19, because it really dramatically changed our table. But before that, usually it would be frequency of Friday, it's a second division, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday would be games of the Supreme League, the Liga Ta'al, and one game, just one game would be the center game of the second division in Monday afternoon. So we try to schedule that with our alliance, which is the national betting company, which wants to have as much games that people would go and bet on it, and the TV right holders, which like to have many days of windows of games to broadcast. So basically, this is why we...
And there is no time when, for example, the matches from second division could be played the same day as the matches of Premier League. You always make it separately?
We make it separate. Friday is most of the games that are part of the second division, and it's good because they get their own attention. Most of the second division are of towns that out of the center. And that it providing them the option for fans that they would attend to games of their local town, and then in Saturday they could go to the bigger town, like the club that present the bigger area, and then they could easily be able to watch games on Friday and then in Saturday. But that was not why we scheduled it this way.
Mm.
The reason why we scheduled it this way is because the betting company, the national betting
Yeah,
company, and the TV holders, so they can have as many games as they can have and
I
make
see.
much profit out of these games.
So as you started talk about scheduling, it's a very hot topic for Russia because, uh, always our experts say that in Europe we have calendar for the whole year and with the specific time of every game. But in Russia, we always receive these dates. For example, I can talk about this season. We started in August. First of all, we got first 8 match days, and then it was not clear after the 8 match days when we will have next games. It's specific dates. I mean, it was like match day 9. We have these games, but which day, which game was not clear. And then we got the second part of our calendar, then the third part, and it's always so stressful because you can't plan your ticket sales, nothing like even for the people who is responsible for traveling of the team, it's also difficult. From this point of view, how it works in Israel, is it participation of the clubs? So you said about the betting company, but what about the clubs, about the fans? Who's responsible for this schedule and how the different parts can influence on that?
So basically, the IPFL is our body. Is the one who in charge of scheduling
Yeah.
the match days. Usually at the beginning of the season, it is little bit problematic because we do not know what team will eventually qualify for Europa League, or sometimes some of them even played Champions Cup. So those are blocks of days in which we do not know if we will have teams in or out. So we need to wait till
Yes. Yes.
stages to understand exactly the map. As I said, as I told you, as we speak, there is one match in the Europa League being played right now, and another one will be later on this evening. So usually at the beginning of the season, which is the end of August, it's kind of a limbo. We just
Mm-hmm.
produce the first or second games, and usually fans doesn't like it that much because they can't reschedule. They don't know. Some they want to go to a vacation, so they want to get married. I get so
Yes.
many people calling me, "Hey, I want to get married. Please, what's going on? If there is a game of my love team, yes or no." So some of the times we do have this problem as well. Now, before the COVID, usually what happened is that because we're running the show from the year 2014,
Yes.
for the COVID, we usually would produce after the high holidays in Israel, the high Jewish holidays, premiere of the league, premiere of the season, sorry, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur and Sukkot. Those 3 holidays are around September to the early October. So usually after the holidays, we would produce a calendar all the way to the end of the round, which is somewhere between December to January. So that would give certainty to fans about the days that are the spots where they're going to play.
Yeah. That's it.
And then what we would do is we would approach the TV holders and we'll ask them, okay, what game you want to play and where. So what happened is that we had a bidding of 126 million shekels for TV right, which will end this year.
Yes.
In dollars, it's about, I would say something like $38 million. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
they get to choose the locations and the games, unless there is a special problem that we know that the national team needs to go or something of that nature. But we would give them the option. So the one who
Yeah.
bought Sport One, okay, sold like did a kind of subleasing, if you want,
Yeah.
games to Channel 5, and then he gets to pick first, and then the other one get to pick the second. So we need to mix things up and to come up with this date. But it's very important to us that the fan will have the understanding and they can check their calendar and they know what they can do. Unfortunately, the COVID has ruined this year. We cannot deliver what we used to deliver. So for now, we would give only like 1 month in advance or top 6 weeks in advance, because we do not know what can happen. And we had some COVID issues that launched teams for 2 weeks. Here in Israel, it's just like the UEFA. If you have 13 players in your squad, you can play, but some of the times you don't even have the 13 if there's a pledge.
And you can attract youth players from youth team. Maybe.
What?
Maybe you can attract youth players from your youth team.
Yes, but what happened is, for instance, that happened to us. One of the teams, Apoel Hadera, had about 20-something players that caught the disease. So
wow.
Even if you take the youth, you could not play. So obviously we needed to postpone its game, and it kind of, we're still trying to find spots where they can play, because it pull things up, and it's really bad in the sense of trying to have a normal league. And also on top of it, Israel was the first country in Europe to get the second wave. Okay, so
really?
Yeah, we were suspended. The government suspended the games in Israel starting at around September. No practice, no games, no nothing. And then only around mid-October, they let us come back. And then we started again the league at November. So you have to understand that will reflect for the next season.
Yes. So, but you mean that the government stopped the championship completely?
Yeah, they stopped the game, stopped even practice. They stopped everything related to that. I know that some countries in Europe have now the same problem. I know Czech Republic, also the government banned teams, quarantined them, not allowing them to play. And, this disease is actually running the whole issue, and it's very complicated and very hard to try and scoop all the problems that you have with players, with teams, into UEFA. One of the Israeli teams who eventually did not qualify, Maccabi Haifa, to the Europa League, they played at the third round against a team from Bosnia. And the team from Bosnia, when they arrived in Israel, it appeared that they have less than 30 players in the squad, so they needed to send back to to Bosnia and wait till when they can find additional day to play. It was a chaos. It's a chaos. Really hard to manage football with the scope of this disease.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, that's about it. That's.
And maybe you heard the story which we had in Russia, and especially in Sochi, when the first match day after this big quarantine, Sochi played against Rostov, and it was a situation, as you said, more or less, because Rostov, they was at that time we have the rules that if you have some people with disease, all the teams should be isolated, and nobody from the squad could play. And you know what was the story? That the main team of Rostov was positive, and some players of youth team, because they played against the main team like friendly game, they was also positive. And imagine like two teams, youth and the main team, they were as isolated, and the game was scheduled. And before our championship was restarted, people said, sorry guys, we can't postpone the games because there is no dates for that. And we played, we won 10-1, maybe you heard this story. But the people, they just hated our club, and was a lot of gossips in the media. And here's my question, what did you do in the same situation in Israel? If, I don't know, if something like that happened, imagine if this will happen in Israel, what will go after that?
Well, something of that nature really happened to us. We have a club called Bnei Sachnin, and they had the coach got the disease. So what we're doing very fast is that we deploy people that will take tests, because the head of the health department in Israel does not believe in testing. He said that there is way too much false negative in the testing, and he doesn't that as a nature. He doesn't believe that. He doesn't want. I mean, it's good eventually for us because the players usually have a good stigma. They can even if they catch the disease, usually they get overcome that very fast. I don't know of any record of any player, any sports in the whole world that died from COVID. It's better not to check because some of the time players who play with this disease are playing perfectly well because they don't have a problem with their lungs. This is like where it hits usually. It hits like very old people with disease. So they're strong. Nothing happened to them.
Yes.
So this chief doctor of Israel said, I do not believe in testing. You don't need to do testing. But if someone, God forbid, happened to him something like it did in Bnei Sachnin, then you get to do it. You deploy very fast checking. So we did very, very fast checking. Okay. And it appears just one player, the second goalkeeper, contracted the disease. But the problem is that the first goalkeeper was injured, regularly injured. So they had to put the third goalkeeper. So they got 7-0. They were slaughtered by the team, the Maccabi Netanya who played. So they were all the time trying to say that this is reckless and why do you let us play? It is obviously if there is just one player that got the disease that there are many much more and we'll fight it with it the next days and blah, blah, blah. Okay? So eventually what happened is that during that week, more and more players caught the disease. And the spokesperson of the club would send, because all of the spokesmen have to put me on their WhatsApp team. Send a WhatsApp notification.
We have the same.
The reporters. So I see that another disease from the disease game because of the IPFL that forced us to play. Another one is sick. And every day you would send another one is sick. Another one is sick. Dad, is coming to me and telling me, it's reckless. Why did you let them play? And what we were telling them is that, listen, there is no way in which we can forecoming and foresee if something might happen. If something might, God forbid, happen, then just like what happened with Apol Chadera, the whole team, the whole squad is ill, and it was, by the way, it was the same time. So Sachnin played and Chadera did not play. And this is why say, this is because they are Arab-oriented team. So say, because we are Arab, you did that in purpose. You let us catch the disease. So it's kind of funny, but that was the story. And we needed to try to, when I talk to journalists, I'm telling them, listen, it's your profession and it's your job as well. If you don't want to sit at home and you don't want the football to be played and you lose your job, you have to understand that we need to be serious about that and we need to run the games as much as we can according to the UEFA protocols that indicate that if there are 13 players in the squad, they can play. We know it's not fair. We know it's not, 100% sports defined. And in that case, because of one player, which was the second goalkeeper, but was injured and they need to take the third one, they got that 7-0. Yeah. You told me about the 10-1. Okay, so it is imbalancing in many ways because it costs.
But the other team was, they didn't have 13 players to play, right?
No, there was just one goalkeeper. But what happened is that they said before the game, they said, you're forcing us to play and we know we'll have people that will catch the disease. Eventually, there were people who catch the disease. By the way, the village where they stay was the highest in Israel. It was something percent of the people in the village who caught the disease at that given time. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they caught it with the game. It might be that when they go to the supermarket. Never mind, it happened. And all the time we need to tell them, listen, what can we do? This is the protocol. We'll have to play. And this time you've been hurt, but next time someone else will be hurted because there is a common goal for all of us.
Yes, yes.
Finish the league. If we do not finish the league, the teams will have to pay fine for the TV right holders, for the betting company, to whoever, So that's why it's very problematic trying to, finish this, get to the finish line.
And Kobby, as I understood, you said about the other team, which at the same time almost has more infected people, and you postponed this game, right?
Yes, yes, because they had eventually something like 14 staff
Oh.
members that were sick.
And less than 13 players, yes.
Yeah, but what happened is that the Ministry of Health declared that as a disease. And when he declared that as a disease, it's overcoming our decide what, the protocol of UEFA, whatever, because the Ministry of Health has the authority to declare a place as infected, as a disease, and close it. Okay, so this is law. Government is higher than what we as
You mean that they closed this territory to
yeah, exactly. They just close it until it will be recovered, because it's become hotspot. Too many people
I see.
getting the virus.
In these terms, for me, it's interesting how the league behaves in this public field, because in Russia, maybe the main, let's say, the most guiltiest authority was the league, and because they didn't say anything, they just kept silence, and people say, why, you're the league, you organize the championship, why you keep silence? And in these terms, I'm interested. What about your position? Did you give any press releases about the situation that this game could be not postponed, this will be postponed because of that, and how fast you did it?
Yeah, the football, I think, was by far the most important sport in Israel, who was like the driven force of returning back to normal. Okay, so our chairman, his name is Erez Khalfon. He came originally, he was a senior advisor to Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, late Ariel Sharon. And later he went to business, and he's working now with oil infrastructure. They take now. We had just signed a contract with the UAE, so he went to sign a contract. So oil will come from UAE to Israel, and from Israel go to Europe. So it's almost like in Russia with Gazprom. Those are the big players eventually. It's politics, energy, football. It goes very well, all across the board.
Alongside.
Yeah, so he was very much, leading the sports. And all the time he set parameters about how and when and why we need to come back. And he said to the government all the time, now we had all the sports journalists backing us up. He was chosen as the man of the year, because unlike football, other sports just gave it up. They said, okay, we don't want it. It's okay. We won't do it. And he was like very persuasive about, this is the days you need to give us by April 1st to get back to practice. By April 30, you need to let us do it with contact, because at the beginning it was with no contact. Then by May 12, you need to let us to get back to play. To the government, it was like pressuring them. And eventually the government understood what is the damage, not only to the sector, just as a sports sector. By the way, the government compromised us with 75 million shekels, which is something like $28 million. They compromise us because they are not letting us sell tickets. Okay, there is no one, zero attendance in the games, nothing.
After March, right?
Yeah, after March. From March till this day, and I don't know when, there is zero attendance at the games. So they compromise us. But he was all the time talking to the press, talking to the government through the press. We were very transparent. We were very talking to the people and explaining them, telling them, listen, dear fans, we love you. We know how much you suffer. but there will
Right.
be no fans till the end of the year. That was last year, which was eventually right. And I really sorry to say, even though that there's a breakthrough with the vaccines. So I know
Yeah.
we're also buying a vaccine, Sputnik 5 from Russia.
Wow.
We're getting from Moderna. We're getting from Pfizer. So they believe that they would start deliver the vaccine around March.
Mhm.
So I believe that this season will be with no fans at all. So this is another dead season eventually. I mean, I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that at least the playoff, the government will let us have fans. You know, fans are coming to the teams. For instance, myself, I was the spokesman of the Apol Tel Aviv club, and I'm a big fan of Apol Tel Aviv club. Okay, and just yesterday, they played in the most northern part of the country. Pol Kriyat Shmona, it's just by the border with Lebanon. And that's the longest drive in the league. Okay, it would be like 4 hours driving. I know it's not Russia.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hours taking airplane from one place to another. But in Israel, that would be the almost the
Yeah.
longest almost the longest drive for the club. And there was, I would know, maybe 60, 70 fans of Apol Tel Aviv that were driving all the way in the rain to stand outside of the stadium and sing songs. I think it's crazy.
Crazy.
Never do that. When you're driving, 4 hours back and then 4 hours forth just to stand outside of the stadium and clap your hands, it's weird. But that's fans, and they really love the game, and it's missing. They miss that. They really want it back,
Yes.
and it's very sad. I mean, we all in the IPFL decided that none of us, even though we have a free pass, obviously, that's just 11 employees in the organization, but we all decided that none of us will go to see game because,
Oh, really?
yeah, we want to set example for the rest of the fans. We don't want fans to, especially my chairman. He said, sometimes it would come 5 minutes just for interview. He would drive. I don't know. It's in Beersheba. Would drive 2 hours back, 2 hours forth, just to 5 minutes, talk whatever, because they ask him to come to a panel or something, and get back home, just not to stay and watch the game, because we want the fans to know that we're not different than them, because this, again, is part of the leadership that the chairman is showing, and for me it's very pity, because there's this face
Yes.
notification, and you get to see, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would go with my kids to see the game, and now they don't go to see games. It's really sad, because they really want to go to a game. It's like, it's so sad, this whole situation, but
Yeah.
we have to be patient.
Yes. It's huge. And what about the other sports in Israel at the moment? Only football is playing, or other sports also can play?
What happened is that the basketball returned as well this season,
Mm-hmm.
and it's being played with no fans at all. Youth games is suspended. My kids, both of them, are suspended from September, when we got the quarantine. So they never came back to practice. So they don't play because the situation. So I don't know when and how they will be able to come back to play. And it is very sad and poor, in the sense that there is a generation here that will have a gap of a year or a year and a half
Mm.
eventually, that did not get the fundamentals of football, because in this age, my kids are, one is 6 years old, second is 8 years old, just stopped play for a year. It will be more than a year, but it's a year and a half, so it's sad,
So
because
there is no way to play. I don't know, maybe in
no,
courtyard.
there's, oh no, I go down with them and I play, but I'm not the coach. They
Yes.
in
You
a
mean like competitions for
yeah,
kids?
no not just no competition, no practice. So
Yeah.
the kids are not going to play in a team. The team is not
Wow.
practicing. So you can go and play downside, in a courtyard or something, but not as under the eye of the coach or something like that.
Yes, I see. So talking about the medical protocols, also it's a big issue in Russia because from the beginning it was not clear who's responsible, let's say, to take under control how good these protocols are carried out in the clubs. If all the personnel using the masks during training, before the training, if we have this alcohol to wash your hands before the training. What about Israel? If there any system which works to check how the teams they take these measures?
Yes, we have a very, very, very detailed protocol about what they need to do. Like every time that they come to practice, the doctor is checking their blood circulation to see that it is not less than 95% oxygen in the blood. And then he measured their body temperature, and it's always they checking what is going on with them. They have to come when they come. They have to come with mask. They don't take shower at the end of the game. They go back directly at home. They are in quarantine. The players are the whole season in quarantine. The only thing that that they're allowed to do is to go from the practice or the game back home. Tell you 100% that I know that they don't go to grocery store or go to their mother or something
Really?
nature.
Wow.
I don't know. But when we did catch one, there was one player who on put in Instagram, not his Instagram, but someone else's Instagram, that he was in a pool party. He was fined 30,000 shekels. It's almost $10,000. So we are very strict about that, very strict, because what we are telling them that this is your profession. You have to it's not just you. There's a 5,000 families in Israel that live from football in three parallels. The first parallel is the players themselves, the coaches, whatever. Second parallel is somebody who gives to the club, the accountant, the lawyer, the whoever, okay? And the third one is mainly that are engaged with the team. For instance, the journalist, okay?
Yes.
They don't get the money from them, but without that, they can't work and write. So this is we came up with a number. It's 5,000 families in Israel being supported by
5,000
by the profession of football. So we're telling them, listen, you have a heavy duty on your shoulders. There are 5,000 people who earn their money from you getting to play. So please, you're professionals, you're getting a lot of money for that. We know it's hard, but you have to maintain the league. Every time that somebody catches some, now we fully understand that sometimes somebody can get infected because his wife is a thief, okay, or something, God forbid, can happen. But we're trying to minimize it, the minimum.
And my question was, who's checking if the teams, the players?
That is at every team there is a coronavirus
manager
officer, yeah, and he is in charge that all the protocols are being in place. Most of the time, it would be the team manager that he would be in charge of everything related to that, to make sure that people put their mask, that they get to take the blood test, that they the oxygen, and so most of the time that's how it works. Somebody who's in charge of it.
And does the league ask any, I don't know, documents, photo protocols that all the measures they in place?
No. It's something that they are doing. But if something happens, just like as I told you, that player that somebody put photo on Instagram, then
it's big penalties.
Yeah, big penalties. For instance, when we were quarantined, one of the biggest club in Israel, Betar Jerusalem, has broken the government quarantine, and we fined them with 100,000 shekels. It's a lot of. It's almost $30,000 because we told them that that might lead to the fact that the government would not let us get back to play. So the government asked us to be strict about that, and we were very strict about that. And so, in many ways, the government looking at the IPFL leadership as somebody who they can discuss with, and somebody that they can rely on, and understand that they're very serious about that and very working against players or teams that do not obey to the government protocols.
So you said that during the games, nobody from IPFL doesn't go to the stadium. Do you have any specific restrictions of number of people who could be at the stadium at the same time before the
Yes,
game?
we do. Yes, we do. We have first off about the media. So photographers need to have 2 meters space. So it reduces dramatically the number of photographers that they can have. The box of the journalist is now reduced to one seat off, one seat off. So some of the clubs have a relevantly small box now have to dig who can come in and who cannot come in to cover the game. The team themselves have approximately 10 guests that can attend the game. Those 10 guests, including the management. Okay, so for instance, the chairman wants to come, the CEO wants to come, whatever. This is just 10 persons every team.
And press officer, for example, of the team?
No, so the press officer and the coach and the team and whoever runs the game is not covered with this number, because press officer is
you mean
part
extra,
of run.
Extra.
Yeah, 10 is for instance the accountant wants to come and watch the game.
That's it.
CEO wants to come and see the game. And also, unlike the first wave, the second wave, we cut the option of people outside of the bubble to go into the locker room. For instance, you're the owner of the club, you're not allowed to approach and talk with your players in the sense of getting into the dressing room, even if you win a huge game or you lost it, and you're not allowed to get into the locker room. It was strict, out of boundaries. So
and you said also that after the games, the players, they don't take shower; they go home and take shower there. Is it correct?
The practice at the game.
Practice. Oh, I see.
At the game, it's something else, because in the game, some of the time they have a long drive. So and usually the stadium are more equipped than the training facilities, and within those stadiums we have there's one shower working, one shower doesn't working. So it's even and they would put on the head of the shower like a nylon or something, so nobody will be able to use that shower. So it's very strict. It's very strict. It's and it's also adding a lot of time now, because after the game there's like 20 people who want to take a shower. So now instead of 10 showers or just 5, and it's time. And also, for instance, the media, there's no more mix zone that people can come after the game and talk. What you get to do is that the spokesman have a video, and he shoot the player and the coach and ask for questions in the WhatsApp group and ask the questions, and they reply, but the journalists are not allowed. Instead of 2 broadcasters that used to be on the benches, that was part of the accreditation that the TV holders have. There's just now one cover both teams, and the interview is 3 meters distant, and the
Right.
microphone is standing, not somebody who hold the microphone like it used to be. So they have now
Yes. Yes.
a microphone who stands and they talk to a microphone. So we're trying to do our best in order to reduce the contraction of the COVID.
And Kobby, what about the press conferences? Do you have one, let's say, like norm regulations for all the team, how it should be, or it's different by club?
No, no,
Club to
we do
club.
have a regulation. Every club need to have a press conference 24 to 48 hours before match day. What happened is because of the COVID, we change it. Is no longer the option of journalists coming asking the question, etc.
Yes.
But they send in advance, and then it's either being via Zoom,
Yeah.
as we're talking right now, or it is, I mean, it's depend of the club, any club and his desire, whatever he wants to do, or that they getting the questions and they have like a live, Instagram or Facebook or something of that nature, and the spokesman asking the questions that the journalists send him beforehand.
And it's live stream, or it could be recorded by the clubs.
What, sorry?
I explained because in Russia some clubs they make it not so simple. They ask journalists to send the questions by WhatsApp, and then they record coach answering the questions. But if they don't like some question, they just don't ask these questions, and it's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's weird time. I have some journalists approaching me and telling me also that, hey, it's not fair. It doesn't ask my questions.
So it's possible that also, yeah.
Yeah, it happens everywhere. I don't think it's special to Russia or Israel or
Okay.
anywhere. I mean, nobody likes to get tough questions. Nobody likes to answer,
Yes.
especially when the club is not performing very well. And yeah, sometimes the spokesperson now have the option to not let the journalist to come say, hey, what can I do? I don't have enough players. That's their golden moment, because they can now get back to journalists and then, no, you can't come. I'm sorry, you're too small of a newspaper, so they can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not all the time as nice as it is, but this is situation. What can we do?
Finishing this corona topic, I also wanted to ask about the tests. How often the teams they should be tested, and how they send the results to the league, or they send the results to authorities, and then you take from them somehow.
No, so as I told you beforehand, our chief doctor does not believe in the authenticity of.
So you don't have this test, right?
We do not have tests
Wow.
unless there is somebody who was vertified. Usually it happens because he's getting very sick and he's getting fever up, and then he's being checked, and then he comes to the practice and he have like 38.3. So I say, okay, we don't go home. You now to do a test, okay, and then but some of them might have the disease without any signs, and it's all good. So. But this is how his protocols. He does not believe.
I see. And still, the personnel like press departments and I don't know, workers of the clubs, they isolated from the players. So if somebody from personnel is sick, it doesn't mean that the players will be sick, right?
Usually, what happens is that full-time employments, just as the big clubs, Maccabi Haifa, Maccabi Tel Aviv, they would act exactly the same like the players, meaning they need to be isolated, going from practice to practice, etc., etc. But the smaller clubs, the one that doesn't have the resources for that, and they would pay just like 50% salary or something of that nature, then in this clubs, then those spokesperson, for instance, do not attend the locker room. And when they do like the interview, they need to keep like 3 or 4 meters distant. And so we're trying to configure it because it is very hard. For instance, if you're just, I have like one of the spokesman of the clubs is a teacher for history, okay? And it is collaborating between him being, at weekends as a spokesman, but a teacher to history during the days. And he told me, look, what do you want me to do? I have class. I can't. So we needed to come up with the solution. So we talked with the health ministry, and I explained them some of the clubs. All of the clubs have a spokesperson, but some of the clubs give him 100% full price, and some of them like 6 or 7 or 8 employees at the press of the big clubs. And the small clubs, it's just 50%. You get to do as a teacher, okay, on top of the, and then you can't tell him, because you need to go to teach. So yeah, it was a way that we needed to find a solution.
Wow. It's very, very interesting. I didn't know that maybe it's, I don't know how many countries act so unusual in this situation, because all these tests and what we have in Russia, it's
everybody has his own sets of protocols. Nobody that to come. It's changed the world in so many ways. Yeah.
And what about UEFA games? When the national team is playing, you should have tests, right? Anyway.
Yes. So UEFA games, this is how some of those players, we found out that they're sick. By UEFA protocols at the beginning, there were 4 teams who playing in the first tiers, but only 2 eventually came up to the Europa League group division. So and also the national team. So some of the time you get to discover upon the checking that are mandatory by UEFA protocol, but to the Israeli league protocol does not force you to take those checks. So it's a prerogative of the chief doctor. By the way, it's changing now, so we don't know who will the new one decide if he wants to go for protocol, but by the end of the year is leaving. So
you mean the Minister of Health?
Yeah, there's his name is Professor Grotto. So he's the head of the public health. He's also a very big football fan, and he likes football a lot. He's a very good friend. He's an ally for the sport, and but he has his own practice. He's, by the way, in the World Health Organization. He's a very important figure. His PhD is in public medicine. So he does not believe at all in the accuracy of the examination of the COVID, and that is his protocol. This is how he works. So he influences on us because he is the regulator. He's the one.
Yes. I heard only here in Russia that like 30% that the test could be like wrong positive.
Yeah, there's a lot of false positive, a lot of that. Some of the time they would have, you would send the same sample, one to lab in Tel Aviv and one in Jerusalem, and you would get a positive and this one negative. So it's not accurate at all, and that's why he told us that it's for our best, because if we would do all the time those tests, we would all the time find false negative, and that will mean that we'll have to jeopardize the end of the league. So obviously.
And do you have a special term like unclear result? Because in Russia, during some months, we got this special term. And
This is exactly this. It's very close to be infected or not infected, and it's weird because it's not. I'm telling you, it's not something that we all we know how to work with that. So. Yeah.
And what about you personally, and about the people in your organization? How many tests you personally?
No, we don't take any. We don't take any test. I mean, as personally, I did took some few tests when I feared that I might contract that. I took 2 tests during those 8 months, but it's not something that it is like mandatory or something of that nature.
No positive?
No, no, I God forbid, was not positive so far.
Because I had positive, but I didn't have many symptoms, and it was really easy for me. I just stayed
But
at home. Like,
you are younger than I am. I am 40,
yeah, I see.
so I
And
also have a
it's good.
diabetes. So when you have a diabetes, you're
Yes.
risk class. So I rather not
Mm.
contract it and get the vaccines. So just waiting to vaccine, so we will get back to life.
Yeah. Okay, I think with COVID, you explained everything very clear and good, and I just want to touch some other topics. Let's talk a little bit about the history of Israeli football. After the creation of federation, when let's say the modern Israel was not existed at that time, Israel first was playing in Asia and then played for some time in Oceania,
Okay,
as I understand,
yeah, right, yeah.
and then finally arrived to UEFA. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Maybe, of course, it was a long process, so many years, but from your perspective, what positive, which advantages gave this switch to UEFA, to Israeli football? What was positive for the local football after this happened?
So basically, what happened is that during the 80s, there were many members of the Arab League who approached the ASEAN Federation and said that they are not willing to play with Israel. That caused a big pain to FIFA, and they have moved us to play in the Oceania zone. So during the 80s, when I was, in elementary school, I remember that we were looking at games to play versus Australia and New Zealand and those kinds of games, Taiwan, because Taiwan also was
Wow.
because of China. So it was very weird, but that's where we were hosted. And then at the early 90s, Israel was part of the European. I think that in many ways, it have been promoting the Israeli football a lot. Because if you look mainly on the league, not the national team, the national team is a disgrace. We haven't qualified for a tournament since 1970. That was the last time that the national Israeli team played in the World Cup. We haven't qualified not to any European or World Cup series. But if you look at the perspective of Champions League, so we had Maccabi Haifa playing twice there.
Yes.
We had Maccabi Tel Aviv playing twice there. We had Hapoel Tel Aviv playing once there. So we do have teams that play in group stage of the Champions League, which is the highest tier. We did had in the smaller cups. So we had all the way to quarterfinal Maccabi Haifa. We used to play for the cup holders. I don't remember the name of it before. And Hapoel Tel Aviv during UEFA Cup, which by the way was amazing because that was the year that Israel suffered the most from terror attacks. So it's amazing because that year the Hapoel Tel Aviv played at the UEFA Cup, and they were qualifying. There wasn't a group stage at that time; it was just game by game by game. And the game, which was the most important one, okay, was played against Chelsea, and Hapoel Tel Aviv beat Chelsea. We beat Chelsea 2-0, and after the game, the players went to a club, and at that club, on the way to the club, there was a terror attack.
Wow.
And And at that day, UEFA decided that there is no more games in Israel because the player were on the way to celebrate their victory, a place called Seafood Market. And because of the bombing of the restaurant, they decided to evacuate all the games from Israel. So Port Tel Aviv needed to host teams in Cyprus and the GPS Stadium. And I remember because that was the most glorious season of any Israeli team ever, and that was my club. So it's really, and we beat Lokomotiv. Okay, we played
Yes, I
Lokomotiv
remember.
Moscow, and then we beat Parma, and then we hit the quarterfinals, and we went to play versus Milan, great Milan, and we needed to play in Cyprus. It's and we lost.
But versus Milan was the first game in Cyprus, or you played some
What?
before? The game against Milan was the first game
Yes,
in
it was the
Cyprus.
first. Yeah, it was the first game in Cyprus
Oh,
because of what happened with the.
I see.
And it was it was a heroic year, and
Oh,
and when you look at that and you're telling yourself, wow, that was such a comfort in dark days where people afraid to go out because the bus might be bombing, and football and the fact that there was kind of normality playing, and unlike football, basketball is doing very well in many sense. So Maccabi Tel Aviv won 3 times in the
mm,
European Cup. I mean, in basketball. So that's not my
mm,
it's not my profession, and it's not my team because I'm the rival. Apol Tel Aviv is the rival of Maccabi Tel Aviv.
yeah,
But yet you get to see that. You see, like during those uh, from the year 2000 up to this day, they won 3 times in the Champions
yeah,
League, EuroLeague. Okay, so it is a comfort to when you're at the high tension, at a war zone, at the time that the discomfort. The sports really help get people together and shed some light in those dark days. And so, in many ways, it is very good to Israel to be part of the European football, which by far is the best football in the world. Biggest money is there,
yeah,
and and it's good to be there, even though we don't really qualify to any tournament. But every time we still have the dream. Every new tournament to start, we still have the dream. We might eventually will play in the tournament. So I hope that I will get to see within my lifetime, because I was born in 1974, and 4 years before I was born was the first and last
mm.
that Israel played in a big tournament. But I hope within my lifetime I'll be able to see that. I
To be
hope.
honest, I didn't know that Israel was playing at World Cup. It's
Yeah, in
surprised me.
1970 in Mexico, 1970.
Wow.
Or just one.
Okay, well, I will check after our edition. So I'm also curious, as you start talking about the national team, if you remember the game Israel against Russia,
Of course.
2-1, when Russia could qualify for European Championship, and we lost that game, and we qualified surprisingly in the next game. What was your emotions? Maybe did you expect that Israel could win? And as I understand that this game, it doesn't bring anything to Israel, but still they played until the end and they won.
Yeah, it doesn't just with that. It was also with the French that we beat them 3-2 at Parc de France, and then they did not qualify because of us, if you want to call it.
Mm.
I remember about this game, which was very folklore story, that
Oh, really?
a British guy said he will buy a Rolls Royce to whoever will score the goal. And the player called Omer Golan, who scored the goal, wanted to get the car, but the FA told him that he cannot take the car. So it was a big story about that. And I still have, every time that I get to see him, because he's now the manager of Maccabi Petach Tikva, and I'm asking him, what about the keys of the Rolls Royce? When do you give me a ride? So it's like a little joke that we all the time make fun about that. And yes, I mean, in that sense, unfortunately, the only thing that we can remember and try to oh, that was a great day is that we disturbed someone on his way.
Yes.
We rude to someone it is. But for me, being a Hapoel Tel Aviv fan, which is one of the oldest clubs in Israel, it was established in 1927. It has its own special DNA. First off, we don't use that much in championship, etc. We only have 12 champions. Okay, so it's very rare. One was in the year 2000, second was in the year 2010, and I really hope that maybe in 2020, because every decade we have just one shot, it didn't work out. We won the championship. I don't know when we will win the championship. We have money. It's team look disaster. This year it started disaster. So no chance that we'll be ever. But for us, like as a Hapoel Tel Aviv fan, we make we laugh about it. We say the best win in the world is to beat someone 1-0 the 92 minutes when the goalie sit on the ball and it's a self goal. That's the best victory in the world. Like just one little 1-0 that somebody score his own goal. That would be the best goal ever. Let's go to celebrate. That's like the DNA of the fans of the club. So for me, unfortunately, it's not only my club, it's also my national team. So I'm regular to be very happy with small victories, small achievement, not really big stories. But
if we talk specifically about that game against Russia, what do you remember? You said about Rolls-Royce, but in the end, nobody got this Rolls-Royce.
No, he didn't. The name of the striker is Omer Golan. He didn't get eventually. Yeah, it was a huge news in Israel. It was big news because Russia, obviously, is a very, very, very big and important team, and the fact that we beat Russia was a big news. And I think that most of the time when you look about competition, equal competition between Israel and Russia is actually more in the judo field, because Israel and Russia are two very, very strong judo team. And a lot of times you get to see like winning the gold medal is about Russian versus Israeli. So for instance, now, two categories of male. The number one ranked is Israeli. Okay, so under 90 and under 100 kilo is Israeli, and number two is a Russian. So you get to see that this is something that, and we really love judo in Israel. I know how much in Russia they love. I know like judo a lot. So this is like something that much more, even ground. When they go to the tatami and have the fight, it's much more nicer than to come to play football and all the time lose, and then one time you get to win. It's a big story. Everybody. So I like to be more in the side where we sometimes get to win, not because of accident, but something, and eventually to come up with a gold medal or a bronze medal or whatever.
I asked you about this game in Israel, and you said about your story in your folklore, and in Russia, one of our players, he said before the game, because it was very important, and as I remember, we need to win this game and then we qualify. And he said we need not to shit pants, so translated in Israel. and after that, the people, when they talk about this game, they quote like that.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, the Russian and before that the USSR national team has a very, very deep root, in the European games as well. They have a long legacy and history. So one time they didn't qualify, shit happens, it's not, think about it, this is just one time you didn't qualify and we just one time qualified. So proportion, it's okay sometimes not to qualify, and this is for us, every World Cup I need to find my favorite team who I want to be the champion, because it happens that Israel is there. So
you said a lot about Hapoel, that you're a fan of this club, and I saw also that you worked in Hapoel for some time, and you worked in Maccabi Netanya also for some time, but very short periods. why it was so short, and do you think these experiences they help you when you work in football Premier League of Israel?
So in Hapoel Tel Aviv, the problem was that the owner of the club was really, really problematic. Really.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided, the chairman, the CEO, and myself, one day, the three of us, we decided to leave. So it was about 8 months that I worked in Hapoel Tel Aviv. It was pre-season and all the way to February. And we decided we cannot keep it on with the owner of the club, that it was a lot of capric, and decided to fire the coach even though we were the first place, and it was unbearable. Decided. So it was the three of us that decided to leave. And by the end of that year, I was approached by Maccabi Netanya, and they told me, maybe you'll come to work for us. Now, beforehand, I was the spokesperson of the municipality of Netanya, so I knew the players at the club, and they asked me if I want to come. I said yes, of course. We had a very bad year, even though it was the year where we got the stadium. Maccabi Netanya dropped to second league. So they did drop to second league. Well, second league, they don't have a spokesperson even till that day. So we just needed to say goodbye to each other because they don't have the funds to have, and not really the need. That was back in 2013. And then in 2014, the IPFL was established, and I was approached by and the CEO asked if I want to come to help and be part of this new creation. And I said, of course, this is a dream come true. And they point me to the job as the spokesperson. I was employee number 001. Still have it on my card. So I was the first employee of the organization. And it was summer 2014, and ever since I'm working for them. It's 6 years now. Six and more.
Okay, then I ask about the organization. You said just 11 people. What about the website, social media? I saw also that you have website in English. How you carry out all this stuff? Do you it alone, or you have any helpers for that?
So some of the things we have outsourcing. Some of them are half. We have, like, for instance, one who work full-time job and one just half part and working all the social related issue. We have one deputy CEO which runs the league, and he has just one assistant. And we have the CFO, the in charge of the money, and he has just one person who worked under him that doing bills and everything, etc. We got the secretary, and we have someone that his position is to liaise on everything related to regulation of the media right holders, and that's pretty it. So it's not, we have the chairman and the CEO, but it's not a lot of people. But we're running about 200 million shekels a year. We're very efficient. And we have also somebody who's in charge of the business development, and also is a lawyer, so he's also covering the issue of the laws. And we're very efficient, very, very efficient. We're very slim, and we do, I think, good job, because before the IBFL was established, I would argue that the money generated for Israeli football was about 50 million, and now 200 million. So it's 4 times much than what it used to be. And we're working just like as the model in all the places in Europe. So the FA, okay, is FA. It doesn't need to work about business plan or whatever. He works with, with the youth, with the ladies, with the national team, you know, uh, and that is good as association. But we as a private owned company, that the
Yeah.
owners are the clubs. Okay, we need to be very efficient, very light structured, so there's not a lot of payment on salary
Mm.
and office, etc. I think we're doing a pretty good job in that sense.
And here I have two questions. The first about the press departments, media departments of the clubs. Do you have special requirements for this, maybe for the websites, for social media, or for the organization of work in these departments?
Yes, they do. They have a Gantt of things that they need to do. They first needed to come up with a website. They needed to come up with a social media. They need to have that up and running. The IPFL put some money at the side, 200,000 shekels per club, so they'll have people profession in that work. We do not examine them, like what are your profession in the sense of do you have a degree or not, but we need to check out that the work is okay. This is the club choosing his guys, but they need to work about the parameter that we're putting for them. So they have to have like a running, uh, you know, interviews,
Mm-hmm.
a relation with the media, relation with fans, everything very strict. And
But this money you said it's going just to the club, not to
yeah, that's going
specific
from
department.
us to the club only in the case that they do have those individuals who are in charge
Mm.
of press secretary and social media secretary.
I didn't get exactly. You mean that you pay them for, like, for the development
Yeah,
of the
if
website? Or?
if they have a press
Mm-hmm.
officer and
Yes.
media officer, they would
Yeah.
get at the end of the year from us, from the
Ah, I see.
100,000 shekels as a compromise. So this is how we help small clubs to be more
Mm-hmm.
professional. So we gave them this money, and now this has helped to expand the marketing of the league. So that was part of
Mm,
how we, put a plan
great.
in order to access to more funds.
But it doesn't mean that it's like extra money for press officers. It's just go to the
No, no,
club.
it's the money who goes to the club. Whatever the clubs decided, the salary of the spokesperson or the press officer of the or the
Mm,
digital officer decide this is what he decided. We don't take part about the negotiation.
okay. Yeah. As I understand, it's support for small clubs if they don't have press officers or they don't have money to have press officers.
All the clubs in Premier League have
Uh-huh.
both spokesperson and media
Ah,
officer. All of them. Because all the teams want to pick up this money, and also on top of it they get the services, which is important for them.
and then sorry, but I didn't get then about this money. What what is especially giving for? Just for having these two people in the club?
Yes, but they in order to get the money they need to qualify
Ah,
on a rooster that we give them, that
I see.
this you
It's
have
like
to do.
requirements.
So if you don't have somebody there, then it's not being done, then they don't get the money. So that's how it works.
Yeah, I see. Do you have any seminars for the press officers?
Every once in a year, yes, we're just doing, but this year we couldn't because of the,
Yeah, of
but
course. Yes.
we do that every year. Yeah.
And this is like educational, or you just exchanging your opinions?
Exchanging opinion, we get to them to have somebody who's professional in his field, so they can lecture them about new trends, new things that they need to do.
Mm. And maybe sent to other leagues. I don't know, to Spain, England.
And not so far, but we did had a tour of
Mm.
community organizers that was organized in England, where they went to learn how they bring
Wow.
to the community. So we organized something with the Premier League, management, and
Great.
a nice exchange between, you know.
And you mean that all press officers of
No, it was
Premier
a
League?
press officer. It's a community.
Ah,
Some of them, by the way, are press officer, and this is an additional job. But the big clubs have their own community bridgers to the. So
I see.
about the club. Small clubs, the spokesperson is usually also the social media officer, is also the fans liaison. You know, it's the small clubs, but the bigger one have position for every.
And you said about two people working in each club. It's a spokesperson, and the second is media liaison
Officer. Yeah, and also there's the media officer and a fans officer. So usually, if you're a small club, then you would do the whole three of them. If you're a medium club, then you have like 2 out of 3. And if you're a big club, you would have like 6 or 7 people that would run people in each division. It's depend about the size of the team and the resources that they have.
Maybe you can briefly explain what is the difference between spokesperson and media officer. Because for me, it's not clear.
No, it's the same. Spokesperson or media officer is the same job, just a different. It's the same. It's the same job, but just different names.
Okay. It could be only one person.
Also, press secretary. It could be spokesman. It could be no.
You mean that in small clubs it's one of the positions?
Usually in small clubs, it's one person.
Okay, I know that we're talking a bit more than 1 hour. If you don't mind, I have several more questions, and then we go to quiz and we finish.
Okay, but if we can, as you told, it's almost 1 hour and 20 minutes. So do it.
I try to do it briefly, like 5 minutes maybe.
Okay.
Another my stupid question, it's why there are so many Hapoel and Maccabi in championship. I counted just 6 Hapoels and 3 Maccabis. Is it not difficult for the fans just to differ where is your club?
It's what happened in history is that the sports organization were formed as a social gathering issue. So Hapoel means the labor, and that is more left wing. And it represents more the class of the workers, just like you have like Lacombe is working with the train and Seska, the army, etc. So that's how it started. So Poel, Maccabi, Beitar, those are the 3 main clubs that are facilitating, and then it comes the name of the city. It's mainly history reasons. So, but within the years, the club has its own appeal. Like some of the clubs have political orientation. Apoel is to the left, Beitar is to the right. Some of the clubs have orientation of like relation to politicians, like special politicians. Some of them are related to like peripheral areas such as Apoel Beersheva, who represent the south, or Haifa, who represent the north. So,
next question about politics. We didn't say anything before. I saw that you wrote a book, The Key to Understanding Donald Trump. Could you say some words about that? What is the key to understand Donald Trump?
It is actually trying to understand the logic of the way Donald Trump behaved, that most people look like irrationality or things that they do without understanding, or because he's stupid or because ignorant or whatever. So this book trying to explain what is Donald Trump doing, that someone from the outside might look at it as a weird or doesn't make any sense. But for instance, I'm talking about is foreign policies, which always related to interior policies. So, instance, if he puts a tariff on iron that come from China to United States, it gets to that because in Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, there's a mine and thing related to steel employees. Okay, if he would put a tariff on Canadian milk, okay, and will fight with Justin Trudeau about that, it's because it's important to him, the agriculture in Wisconsin, they voted for him. And if he would go against Mexican, okay, and will push the Mexican with the wall and everything, he would do that because of Michigan, because it's important to him, the car infrastructure. So what the book's trying to do is in a simple English, try to explain why he's doing whatever he does, okay, in many of the fields that to most of the people look like make no sense.
And is it possible to buy this book? Actually, it will be interesting for me.
Yeah. It's in Amazon. Not only in Amazon, it's also, I know that there's a Russian, I don't remember the Russian.
Ozon.
No, there's on top of Amazon, there's a Russian, I don't remember the name of it because it was distributed in many, many countries. But if you try to understand Donald Trump and then site .ru, you would find the books publishers in Russia that sell that book. I think there's 2 or 3 of them.
Wow. You mean that it was translated or it's in English?
No, it's not translated to Russian, but they sell. It is easily delivered. Have to be.
You mean that it's I can deliver from Russia?
From Russia, yeah, exactly.
Wow, cool. So then let's go to my quiz. I try to be short again, and I ask you to answer also shortly. How much politics in modern football?
A lot. Almost every team has its own fan that is a politician in a local level or a high level. A lot of politics.
What is the main problem of local football?
We don't have enough infrastructure, so kids cannot train good. And that means that eventually kids don't grow up to be a better football players because there is a shortage. We're very, very, very small country, and there is not enough place where you can build football pitches. And for instance, Maccabi Netanya, which I was a spokesman, a kid would play on a third of the court the whole week, and then he will play just in Saturday in a full court. So try to think about this like if a left defender, you don't know how to lob the ball because you play on a third of so it makes no infrastructure. So I think this is the biggest problem of the Israeli football.
The main achievement of Israeli football.
Yeah, because of that, it is avoiding the progress of the Israeli football because we don't have the basics. Players do not have the basics. There is not enough room and not enough good coaches and trainers to have kids developed well.
And still, you see any achievements in football? Modern football.
Achievement I get to see like in the teams, but the teams I remind you that some of them have 6 foreigners sometimes. So obviously that's why there's a difference between the teams who managed to qualify to Champions League, but the national team never qualified. That's the problem. That's the.
The day when you were happy at work.
What about it?
The day when you were happy at work.
A day that I was happy. I think the day that I was accepted to the job. I was the.
Even this one in Premier League.
When I was accepted, I started to work on June 14, 2014. So if you ask me about the best day in my job was my first day, just to getting the job.
How many matches, football matches, you watch every week?
Wow, a lot. Usually when not COVID speaking, I would get to see like sometimes 4 or 5 matches during the week. Not all of them in the stadium, but would keep an eye on the television, see what's going on. Yeah, I really love football.
The stadium with the best football atmosphere
In Israel, by far, Bloomfield is the best stadium. It's Hapoel Tel Aviv Maccabi Tel Aviv Bnei Yehuda Stadium. It was just renovated for 30,000 people, which now is huge, but it still has its special acoustic, which like no one else in Israel.
And if we talk outside of Israel?
I haven't been to too many stadiums, but one that I remember particularly, and I really like the configuration of it, it's the stadium in Warsaw, the new stadium in Warsaw, that Legia Warsaw plays there. I found it amazingly acoustic, and the fans give you this goose chips when you go out to the game, to the pitch. It was, we played the group stage with Legia Warsaw, so that stadium was phenomenal. It was really amazing.
Your dream as press officer of the league?
That we will play in, not as the league, but as the Israeli. My dream is we will play sometime in at least like the Euro, if not World Cup. This is my dream. My dream is to take my kids to see once, not just me, but take my kids also to see that. It's my dream. My unachieved dream.
Sorry?
My unachieved dream, probably.
And the last one, 3 advices you can give young people starting working in press departments of football clubs or leagues.
That what the best thing that I can offer is to start with volunteering, maybe in a 3rd or 4th grade club that would not pay to you, but will give you the option, and you would build him a nice Facebook page and do like really funny Twitter account that many people will start to attract you because you're very funny, you're wise, you're really nice, you're cool, and then it will come from himself. So not to wait for this just one job that opens in Lokomotiv Moscow and there may be like 500,000 people who bidding for that job, but try to build yourself from bottom up in the places where nobody will pay for you, but it will be your best exercise on the way to achieve your job of your dream.
So it was Kobby Barda, press officer of Israeli Premier League. Thank you very much for this time. I'm sorry that it was a bit longer than I expected. And the last one, I ask you if you have anybody to suggest me as a new guest. Maybe now or maybe later, you can think about that. Could be your colleague from other leagues or from other countries.
We just signed a contract now with the UAE league, and it's been remarkable organizing together a press conference. So they're very nice people, very interesting, and I would advise you to try to interview them about their perspective about.
Perfect. So then I will wait for contacts.
I will send it to you, no problem.
And for you, it's weekend. We are working tomorrow, and that's why I wish you have a nice weekend.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye. Bye.